Yo soy Fernando Hernández y estoy escuchando a mi hijo Adrián Hernández.
The most dangerous of games are being played right now. What I mean by that is we are recording while my son is in the home with me. So let's get to it, man, because today we got guests. Today we got announcements. It's a landmark episode, by the way, because we do give out roses around here. So let's congratulate ourselves, congratulate you, everyone a part of this podcast and who's been on this podcast, because we finally hit double digits. This is episode 10 of the Sporting Tribune Today. I'm your host, Adrian Hernandez, and we also got a new segment as well. But let's start off the show by saying my bad. We had to switch up the schedule this week for dropping it, of course, here on a Monday instead of the typical and usual Friday release. To be honest, we were a little busy here in Las Vegas, not only this past weekend, but the entire week as the NFL invaded Vegas for the Pro Bowl. So this episode and next week, they're both going to drop on Monday. We'll consider next week's episode your official post-game show of the Super Bowls. We'll break everything down, whether it's Mahomes' second ring or Jalen Hurts' first ring. So look forward to that next Monday. Not a Friday. We'll do it after the game on Monday. But on today's show, we'll be joined by Cameron Wolfe, national NFL reporter for the NFL Network, who got the exclusive this weekend. He got to speak with the dude that everyone wanted to talk to. I'm talking about Derek Carr, because for Derek, it was an awkward reunion, an awkward actual goodbye, not only to everyone at the Raiders headquarters in Henderson for the Skills Challenge, but he also got to say goodbye to everyone at Allegiant Stadium yesterday for the Pro Bowl game. So we'll talk to Cameron Wolfe, some of his big takeaways of his conversation with Derek, where he sees Derek playing next year, and also Super Bowl thoughts and everything happening around the league. So we'll be joined by Cameron Wolfe here in a second, but we'll also be joined by Rachel Galligan, who this will be her first time on the show. First time for Cameron too, so salute to both of them. But Rachel works with Just Women Sports and Winsider. She's here to discuss WNBA free agency because it kicked off about a week and a half ago, and since then, things have been going crazy. Of course, here at the Sporting Tribune Today, we cover the LA Sparks. They've been making moves here in Las Vegas. We cover the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champs. They've been making moves, signing Candace Parker, trading De'Arica Hamby to LA, but of course, the investigation and the accusations that followed that move. We'll go into details on that situation and everything around the league with Rachel. I didn't even mention the New York Liberty that are trying to build the Monstars to combat the Aces. It is a lot of stuff going on, so we'll talk to Rachel here in a second. But I said we have announcements, so let's get to it, because I'm flattered. And I hope you could tell by my voice, if you can just notice it, I'm smiling cheek to cheek, very excited for the announcement. Actually, announcements, plural, because we got two of them. We have an official sponsor on the show, ladies and gentlemen. So, for the first time, let me say this. The Sporting Tribune Today is sponsored by Your Way Breakfast and Lunch. So, we're here in Las Vegas. If you're not here in Las Vegas, here's another reason why you should come down here. In my opinion, I'm a big dude. I've been eating food all my life. For 29 years, of me being on this planet, I've been eating food. That's 29 years of experience, and I'm telling you, when it comes to this city and this area, here in Las Vegas, Nevada, Your Way Breakfast and Lunch has the best breakfast, and they see the vision of everything we're trying to do here. They like what we're doing. They want to be a part of it, and we thank them. So they support us. You support them. For those here listening in Las Vegas, go check them out over there on Lake Mead and Jones. In the description, we'll put the full address for you. And for those that are going to visit here eventually, when you come to Vegas, just plan on stopping at Your Way Restaurant. It's a local business here in Vegas. Born and raised here, and it's affordable, and the food's delicious. So shout out to Your Way Restaurant, the official sponsor of the Sporting Tribune Today podcast. And also, we got a sponsor and we got a partner. I'd like to introduce you to Zip Chair Gaming, because here's the truth. I record this podcast here in my studio. I don't do it standing up. I'm sitting in a chair. When the podcast is done recording, I got to edit the audio. You know, we put it up on YouTube and Twitter and everything. Got to edit the videos, put them together, post them. There's a lot of things being done here in this desk, and I'm on my ass for a long time, and I have to be comfortable. Luckily for me, Zip Chair Gaming is here for us. Their chairs are comfy as hell, and they like what we're doing as well. And I'm blushing because it's kind of, this is new to me. I've never had sponsors and partners and people that kind of see our vision and want to be a part of it and want to help us grow and want to support us. And the best part about it too is if you're thinking about making this move and getting a chair and getting comfortable, because if you want to do it right, it costs a pretty penny. It's expensive, but it's worth it. So luckily with Zip Chair, they are partnering with us, which means I can tell you, if you go to zipchair.com or zipchairgaming.com, use the discount code Adrian, ADRIAN, and you'll save yourself 10% on all their products. They got furniture, they got sofa lounge couches. Like, there's a lot of different stuff outside of just chairs. The chairs are customizable. Matter of fact, go to an Eagles game, go to a Mets game, any Caesars Sportsbook in this country, the chairs are Zip Chair chairs. You go to AEW for all my wrestling fans, which we'll talk about wrestling here in a second for our new segment. Those chairs at AEW, if you got those good seats, those ringside seats, those are Zip Chairs. So shout out to Zip Chair again, 10% off. Use that discount code Adrian. Shout out to Your Way Restaurant, Your Way Breakfast and Lunch, one of the best eateries, breakfast spots in Vegas. I'm so happy and thankful and grateful that they're supporting us, helping us make this podcast as best as possible. And with all that, let's really get down to some things and let's introduce our new segment. It's real simple. It's called Quick Thoughts. Sometimes it's going to be a sentence. Sometimes it'll be like a 2 or 3 minute rant. But let's go. Let's do it. It's the first time we're recording this. We're not going to re-record it or anything. These are initial honest thoughts from my brain straight to the microphone. And we'll start off with our guy, co-founder extraordinaire here at the Sporting Tribune, Arash Markazi, who we had on the show recently. And I asked him about LeBron and the scoring record and him being with the Lakers and being in LA. And basically, for me, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, it's been hella stepdad vibes. Like, LA really truly doesn't embrace the greatest basketball player ever, and it's very odd. I understand it to a certain extent, but it's very odd, especially after the championship that he brought this city and helped this city after Kobe Bryant's death and all these different things. He's been there a while. But over the weekend, Arash tweeted this out, quote, "Question for Lakers fans. Does the Lakers' record this season, and to some extent last season, and the fact that LeBron James has scored less than 20% of his career points matter to you when he breaks the record, or will you celebrate it as you would any other Lakers great?" But there was one response in particular that really agitated me. I'm going to be so honest with you. It was this: I am in the minority. I'm not a fan of his. I think he plays only for himself. I don't want him to break the record. I do not consider him the best Laker or even the best player in the league. The team won't win until he retires. Sorry, not sorry. Obviously, this lady has a really good weed drug dealer or whatever she's smoking on, but she was an outlier. Others said it really doesn't matter because the team stinks. Let me say something, because I am not a Lakers fan. I'm not a part of Lakers Nation. As an outsider, you all sound ungrateful. It is absolutely asinine. Let me tell you something, talking about he only plays for himself. LeBron James, over the past 2 weeks, has passed Steve Nash on the assist record, all-time assist in the NBA. He passed Steve Nash, a point guard, a 2-time MVP, one of the greatest point guards in the history of basketball. He passed him up. We're recording this on the Monday. Tomorrow, he's more than likely going to pass the all-time scoring record. And you guys don't want to show him love? He brought you a championship, your most beloved player ever. He's the one who got you out of that. He brought you a championship after that. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, when you say he's really not a Laker, do you realize he's been on the Lakers longer than he was on the Miami Heat or the Cavs the second time around? He's been there for years. He chose to play for your city, granted, for his business opportunities when he's done playing. But you have the greatest player in the world of all time in the sport. And this is what you guys want to say about this dude, because he has Russell Westbrook as his teammate and one of the softest superstars in the league. Get out of here. Get out of my face. Next point, Kyrie Irving. We're getting details about what the Clippers offered, what the Lakers offered Brooklyn, and all these other teams and all these other packages. And I sent out a tweet when Shams dropped the bomb directly from Kyrie Irving saying he wanted to leave Brooklyn. And I said Kyrie Irving won't play in the NBA after the next team that he joins, not realizing that his contract's going to end at the end of the year. So I take that tweet back. Whoever he signs with next, he will then not play in the NBA anymore because he'll finish it out in Dallas. How much he'll play, I don't know. Are they going to win? No. Are they going to make the Western Conference Finals again with Luka and Kyrie? No. It's not going to work out. At what point are we all going to look around and just have faith in this guy? One of the most talented basketball players of all time. Amazing. He scored 60 points last year against the Magic on like 20 shots. One of the most incredible regular season performances I've ever seen. He ain't played in it and really been knee deep in his career for years at this point. This is what, the third or fourth team he's blew up out of most. Hold on, let me get this phrase right. Like I said, we're not re-recording. He's blown up 3 or 4 teams out of his doing. He's the one who did this, not anyone else. Not someone behind the scenes or someone being a snake. If anything, he was the snake. And I don't even consider him a snake. I just think he's full of himself and he thinks he's smarter than everybody. And we'll see how this plays out. He ain't going to win in Dallas. The next team that signs him, fool's gold, if they even give him a big contract, because you'd be stupid to based on his past 4 or 5 years of his career. We'll move on to the Super Bowl. Since we are going to be bringing you our next episode on Monday after the game, that means we have to make a prediction. I am going to... Here's the thing. I want to say the Chiefs are going to get washed because I trust the Eagles that much. They have been absolutely dominant. I kind of want to say that the Eagles' defense has been the greatest defense of the past 23 years, meaning the 2000s. But the one defense that sticks out to me is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2003, where they had a Hall of Famer in every level of that defense. You had Warren Sapp on the defensive line. You had Derek Brooks as a linebacker. You had Rondé Barber as a quarterback. You had John Lynch as a safety. I didn't even mention Simeon Rice, Shelton Quarles. Dexter Jackson ended up winning that MVP against the Raiders in the Super Bowl. Like, that defense was amazing, and the Legion of Boom was amazing. But this defense with the Eagles, you know, they drafted these dudes from Georgia, these big-ass dudes on the defensive line that ain't even getting play because that line is so stacked. But the Eagles haven't been there before. The Chiefs have. They have that experience. So I don't think it's going to be a wash, but ultimately, I think the Eagles are going to end up winning. Of course, they've had the running game these past couple of years. They've had the best offensive line. I just think that third and fourth quarter, they're going to keep beating them up. They're going to keep beating them up, and they'll stay on top. And, of course, running the ball against the Chiefs, you control the clock. We'll see Patrick Mahomes' health. Obviously, this will be the true test because that Eagles defensive line is going to get to him no matter how good the Chiefs O-line played against the Bills or the Bengals, excuse me. So I got the Eagles over the Chiefs. And then my final quick thought. I'm a huge wrestling fan. It's WrestleMania season. The Royal Rumble was fantastic. This bloodline storyline with Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, the Usos, Solo, Sikoa, all of it's incredible. And then you got Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble, kind of spoon-fed. He said he was joining. They were playing the promo packages. He comes out as number 30. Amazing sequence with Gunther. Shout out to Gunther, who lasted the entire time. Trust WWE in whatever they do. Some people are saying, hey, Cody Rhodes can't be the one to main event WrestleMania against Roman. It's too hot with Sammy right now. Give Sammy that Daniel Bryan-like look and have him headline WrestleMania, which I wouldn't mind. Honestly, as a fan, I would love to see that happen just because I'm that type of dude. I want to see that. But I trust WWE Everything that they've done surrounding this bloodline has been gold and fantastic. So just sit back, enjoy the ride. WrestleMania is in like 2 months. We got plenty of time. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Not only the wrestling, but this podcast. That was the first ever rendition of Quick Thoughts. Lakers fans have me heated. Let's switch gears to the NFL. Cameron Wolfe of the NFL Network here on the Sporting Tribune today. Hey, it's 11:40, The Bet and Odyssey Sports closing out the week strong. Of course, the NFL has invaded Las Vegas once again. It is Pro Bowl week, and a man who has survived multiple days so far here in Las Vegas covering everything Pro Bowl for the NFL Network is NFL national reporter Cameron Wolfe, who joins us first and foremost. Cameron, thank you for joining us. And I know it's your first time on the show, and we really like to get to know our guests before we get into the sports and everything. And I noticed on your Twitter bio that you're from Mississippi. So my first question, Cameron, is Big Crit not the most underrated rapper of all time?
Absolutely. Big Crit's actually my favorite rapper. So I might make an argument that he's one of the best rappers of all time. But I'm a little biased there. So definitely I would give him most underrated. People sleep on the South, but I'm a big Southern rap guy. Big Crit is top of the list.
No, 100%. I just need to make sure. I was like, he's from Mississippi. I need to ask him about Crit for sure. And speaking on music, on the music tip, because of course, Super Bowl next week, Rihanna at the halftime show. Do you think Eminem's going to appear at the halftime show, which would make him the first artist ever to be a special guest in 2 Super Bowl halftime shows and back-to-back as well?
Oh, I don't know. That would be fun, right? There's a lot of different cameo options there. Eminem, Rihanna's tight with Drake. Does Drake show up? I don't know. Rihanna's a big headliner in her own self, so even if there's no guest, I think we'll be fine. But she has a deep crew, so, maybe Eminem, maybe Drake, who knows?
Yeah, 100%. And you had the opportunity last night to talk to one of the most hated and loved Raiders here currently on the roster. Of course, talking about Derek Carr for the Pro Bowl games at Raiders headquarters in Henderson. With Derek Carr being around, it kind of feels like an ex moving out of someone's house and kind of taking their stuff as they're getting out of there. I just want to know, before we get into the conversation that you had with him, what was the vibe and energy like in headquarters? Because, technically he's still a part of this Raiders roster for at least the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, when he first showed up, there's obviously the irony of him being here after saying his goodbye, right? But I tell you what, he treated it with light spirit. Like, he wasn't angry. He was making a lot of jokes about it. The first day that I saw him, it was during rehearsal, and he made a joke about knowing all the entrances and exits, knowing where the snacks are, so he can get extra snacks to all his Pro Bowl buddies. He was saying hi and giving hugs to a lot of employees here, and so he said it's a different vibe for sure. Maybe the X comparison's a good one, but he's handled it pretty well. So not a lot of bad spirits from Derek Carr from what I've seen. But, the crowd definitely throughout the day, was a lot of mixed reactions based on what Derek Carr was doing out there.
And, you had the chance to speak with him on air on NFL Network for about 7 minutes. First, I thought it was hilarious. He got his Rob Lowe on with the red NFL logo hat. But for you, what were your big takeaways from the conversation with him?
Yeah, no, I think the big thing talking with Derek was just him being clear once again that he's moved on from the Raiders, even though he's still physically a Raider. He made clear to me that, he has his no trade clause, and he feels like it gives him control to pick his new team. And so he noted that February 15th date where his contract becomes guaranteed, and he seemed pretty clear that he was going to have a lot of control and options on what he does next. So I think you're looking at a situation with Derek Carr where it's going to be a little bit of a stare down over the next 2 weeks with the team, with the player. Obviously, they have to make some decisions on what the trade options look like. And right now, we're just waiting to see if ultimately he is traded, or maybe more likely if he gets released and gets to choose his own team. So some of the conversation was about that. Some of the conversation was just about how I asked him if he wanted to share his side of how things went with the Raiders. And he said, look, you're a human, and so you always want to be able to share how you're feeling and what the true story is. But he said it wasn't going to fix anything. He said, hey, me telling my side of the story isn't going to fix anything, so I'm just going to move on and keep loving people and give everything I have to my next city. And so he kind of took the high road, kind of classy in the way he went out in that respect. But he seemed very thankful for his time here in Vegas and Oakland, but he seemed really content that it's over. And it didn't seem like there was any turning back on, returning to the Raiders. And it didn't seem like there was any turning back on moving back his trade deadline. Moving back his contract guarantee date or waiving his no-trade deadline. So he's putting the onus on the Raiders to make a move so that everybody can move forward.
And, with the people that you talk to and getting to talk to Derek himself, I want to ask you, what do you think is the likelihood at this point that he actually ends up getting traded as opposed to getting cut on February 14th?
Yeah, I think the big thing there is his salary, right? He's making over $40 million in guarantees for 2023 and 2024 partial salary there. So you're going to have a team that's willing and wanting to not only pay that money, but give up capital as well. And so I think that's the challenge here. I think Derek Carr's no trade clause is also a challenge here because he can play hardball. He could simply say, hey, I'm not accepting the trade anyway. And ultimately, the Raiders would have to release him if they didn't want to be stuck with his guarantees. And so I think that I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but I do think that these next 2 weeks, we'll see something significant news-wise in regards to Derek Carr. I don't think that it's going to be quiet. I think we'll see the Raiders have to make some sort of move whether trade or released by that date.
And before we get into some of these other quarterbacks around the league and the Super Bowl as well, last question I want to ask you in particular with Derek Carr and your time that you spent with him here for his return, quote unquote, to the Raiders, which is just strange to even say. But do you kind of get the sense that whatever team gets Derek Carr next season is going to end up getting a player that is very, very motivated because of how bad and how much of a disaster this season was with the Raiders?
Oh, absolutely. One example of that is we were at the Pro Bowl and the rehearsals, and he came out there firing, hitting literally every target in practice, and he did no warm-up. And then yesterday during the skill challenge, he won it. And so, I asked him about that yesterday. He said he's been training 5:30 a.m. every single day with one of his good buddies during the offseason because he wants to give everything to his new team. And he told me that really the last month and definitely the last season has reignited his flame and wanting to compete and win at the top of the game. And so I do think you're going to see a refocused, a remotivated Derek Carr. And so what that means on the field, I'm not sure, but it does seem like that he's happier than I've seen him in a while and also more motivated to prove people that he could still be a team's true quarterback for the foreseeable future.
And, obviously Raiders had their eyes set, Raider Nation had their eyes set, I should say, on Tom Brady, who retired and kind of has blown up not only the Raiders, but possibly the Niners, the Dolphins, a whole bunch of teams' plans for quarterback in this free agency. I just want to kind of get your reaction to Tom finally calling it quits.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been talking with some of Pro Bowl stars about Tom Brady all week, and there's been a mix. There's been people who've been sad to see what they call the GOAT, the greatest player of all time, gone. There's other guys, like I talked to Tyreek Hill, who said, I'm convinced he's not done. And, there's sort of like a mixed bag here because we saw him retire and unretire last year. So he says he's done for good, but there's some people who are skeptical for sure. And I was talking to a couple of the younger guys, Micah Parsons and Sauce Gardner. Sauce has never played Tom before. And he said he wanted Tom Brady to unretire so that he could get an interception off of him because he's been on his bucket list for years. I don't think that's going to happen. And Micah Parsons pleaded to me to get Tom Brady to sign his jersey because he had the last sack of Tom Brady, and he really needed it up on his helmet. So a lot of different perspectives on Tom Brady's retirement, but I think overall everybody's happy for him, but also curious if he'll stay true to the retirement this time.
80 and Brady in theaters now, by the way. They're not paying me to say that. In fact, I don't even know why I said that. I also find it very curious that you mentioned that the one Dolphins player on the Pro Bowl is saying that he's not retiring. I'll let people do what they want with that information. But not only Tom Brady with some news, but of course it's the offseason. It's been happening the past couple off seasons. Aaron Rodgers and where he ends up. I know you stay in Miami, bringing up the Dolphins again. Raiders and Devontae Adams with that connection, and Devontae kind of flirting with it on the IG story. Where do you see Aaron Rodgers ending up?
Yeah, that's the question of the offseason to me. Like last year was Deshaun. This year I think it'll be Aaron Rodgers. It's funny, I saw he did the golf tournament a couple days ago, and they asked him, and he said not San Fran. Because San Fran would be my first thought of what makes the most sense for him. Going out west where I think he would prefer to be, and a team that's, a quarterback away essentially. If it's not him, maybe it's here in Las Vegas. That's a team that makes sense if they move on from Derek Carr and need to get another quarterback as well. So for me, you got to look at game-ready situations for Aaron Rodgers. I do not think it'll be Miami. What I understand, they are committing to Tua for at least this next year, and I don't see them going and getting a big veteran quarterback. But, that's stuff that can change if things change this year. But as far as Aaron Rodgers in 2023, I'd imagine that, you look at some of the most competitive teams, the teams that are maybe one player, maybe one quarterback away, where you start with a guy like him.
Cameron Wolfe joining us, NFL national reporter for NFL Network, here throughout the week, covering everything Pro Bowl here in Las Vegas. And before we let you go, let me set the stage for the Super Bowl before I ask you the question. When I look at Patrick Mahomes, I think it's his best season ever, considering losing Tyreek, some of the injuries the wide receivers have had. When I look at the Eagles, to be honest, this might be the best defensive team since the 2002 Buccaneers with how amazing this defense has played. No disrespect to the Legion of Boom. So I say all of that to ask you, a week away from the Super Bowl, rather, who do you have winning it?
Give me Philly. I think they have been the best team all year. I think a lot of these games are going to be won in the trenches. To me, they have the best offensive line in football. Their defensive line has more sacks than any other team by 15, and they have a young quarterback who I think has shown that he can step up when needed in key moments. And so I love Patrick Mahomes. I think that he is not only the best quarterback in the league, the best quarterback that we've seen in some time, but ultimately I think the differences in the roster are going to be why Philly wins the game. I think they're going to impose their will on the Chiefs defensive line. With their offensive line, it's going to allow them to win a lot of those one-on-one matchups with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown on the other end. And then on the other side of the ball, I just think that they're going to be getting after Patrick Mahomes. We're going to truly see if that ankle is 100% or not because of that pass rush for the Eagles. So give me the Eagles in a very, very close one to win the Super Bowl.
There it is, Cameron Wolfe. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, Cameron Wolfe with an E at the end. Cam, enjoy your stay in Vegas, and we'll see you at the Pro Bowl, my friend. Hey, it's Adrian Hernandez, of course, from the Sporting Tribune today. And if I leave this earth, I want you to remember one thing. Your ass should be comfortable, all right? Like, that's so important. Like, if you're me, for instance, we do the podcast here in my office. We edit our shows and everything we do for not only the podcast, but our jobs, and we're editing videos and the interviews and the clips for social media, and then we're doing our research, and then we're playing video games. Like, a lot of stuff gets done on this desk, sitting in a chair, and thankfully for me, the good folks at Zip Chair and Zip Chair Gaming reached out. They have me sitting and living like a king, sitting comfortably as you should, so that you can be as productive as possible. And look, you go into an Eagles game, go into a Mets game, a whole bunch of stadiums throughout this country, AEW shows, Caesars Sportsbooks, Zip Chair supply the chairs for these places so that people can sit comfortably. And now it's your turn. Support the people that support us and make this podcast possible, and use that discount code ADRIAN, ADRIAN, to save yourself 10% off of Zip Chair products. And coming up next, Rachel Gallagher of Just Women Sports and Winsider.
I've got my phone right here in case something goes down. So we're good.
And by the way, if you need to check your phone or anything, I'll say it in the intro. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Hey, it's 11:40 The Bet Las Vegas and Odyssey Sports, joining us for the first time, not only on the radio, but in Zoom for all our YouTube and the BetLasVegas.com viewers. We have Rachel Gallagher joining us, friend of the show, friend of the program, a WNBA insider. So first, Rachel, I want to let you know, free agency's going on. if someone texts you, if you get a phone call, just put the Zoom on pause. We will not get offended. We understand we're in the middle of the craziness. So my first question to you is, how hectic has these past like week and a half been for you?
I'm gonna be honest. You know, they changed the calendar up from what it has been in years past, and so with everything happening now on the 21st, not the 15th, it's kind of a little bit more of a condensed period of time. So I think we're all kind of getting used to it. Those of us who are, you know, trying to break the news and trying to be on top of the beat. I mean, it's kind of different. Like in my mind has told me that, oh, man, there should be so much more right now. But I think I'm just kind of accustomed to how it's been in the past. So, I mean, I think it's come out pretty steadily over the weekend. I mean, there was definitely some stuff that came out on Sunday and a few things today. But really, after the Jonquel Jones trade, it was kind of like a silence that kind of creeped me out. I was like, man, this is so weird. I felt like
Yeah, for real.
More, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm hoping you're getting at least 6 hours of sleep through all this craziness, because we're all on emoji watch with Breanna Stewart. We're all on emoji watch. But before we get to that, I'm obviously here in Las Vegas. A lot of things have happened. Candace Parker, Dearica Hamby being traded. And it's uncomfortable, but I feel like it's something that we need to talk about. And now that the dust has kind of settled, sort of, and just for everybody to know, before I ask you about Dearica Hamby and what you think about it, just to let everyone know, I have asked to speak to the president, Nikki Vargas. I have asked to talk to the GM. The Aces haven't returned anything, just for full transparency. But for you, with everything that's played out with the Aces and that trade specifically, what do you think of it all?
I think it's a really hard situation across the board. I think it's a really unfortunate situation. My heart goes out to Dearica Hamby. I mean, I think we've watched this franchise and this team who has appeared to be so close, so connected, all the things that, you know, we've kind of learned to love and has been so endearing about the Las Vegas Aces has been, you know, in large part just kind of that chemistry, and Dearica Hamby's a huge part of that. So personally, I'm sad because it feels like, you know, a huge pillar of that success is no longer there. I think it's definitely going to take some getting used to. You know, I'm really happy that she's ended up in a phenomenal organization with the LA Sparks. You know, I think in terms of the way things went down, I mean, it's hard when you don't know the entire story, you don't know the inner workings, you don't know all sides. I think Hamby's statements and everything she said were pretty jarring to me, and disappointing. Makes me sad for her. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't had some sort of statement from Las Vegas. I'm surprised there hasn't been anything that's come out up until this point. I anticipate that there will. Maybe it's one of those PR things that you see, you know, while the investigation is underway. But you know,
still super disappointing at this point.
Still super disappointing. And, you know, it's hard when you don't know all the details. I understand it is a business. Las Vegas, we've talked about ad nauseum, the depth issues. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year, and in large part because they were able to make that trade, and more than likely Candace Parker's taking an extremely team friendly deal to allow more depth, and then you add a piece like Alicia Clark. So, you know, they're doing what they have to do. You know, that's what you, I guess, have to look at from an organizational standpoint. But man, my heart really goes out to Hamby. She doesn't deserve to be treated anyway, but the absolute best, and the wonderful, you know, teammate, friend, mother, everything that she is. I'm sure there's a lot more that's going to come out.
And of course that Players Association investigation still pending. Kind of want to ask you a two-part question as we transition into the pickup of Candace Parker. Number one, how disappointing is it that the Aces haven't made a statement? Number two, because they keep waiting, if at this point, hypothetically, because we don't know, they could release a tweet, a message can come out at any second, but hypothetically, if their first statements are in the introductory press conference for the new pickups, now it puts those players that signed onto the team, kinds of put them in a bad position. Is it also, there was a discussion about, should the media ask Candace Parker about her joining this team despite what's going on with Dearica? Is it not fair for media members to ask her, like, hey, did any of this that was going on play a part or give you any hesitation to join the team?
I don't know. I don't think that's an unfair question at all. I think we all can agree Candace is going to do what's best for her. And when you break it down and when you understand, and I think she did a phenomenal job in her post when she revealed that she was going to Las Vegas. I thought she did a phenomenal job of explaining that, and it makes sense. But no, I don't think that question should be off limits at all. I think that my biggest fear is that some of this kind of, because now free agency is it going to overshadow it a little bit? Because now we're going to have all these moves, we're going to have all this hype and all this talk about all the movement. Does what happened kind of get overshadowed in some ways? And I hope personally that they're handled in different scenarios. Like it's addressed in one scenario, and then the players who are now signed on with Las Vegas and they're having their day, that gets to be about them. I think that's how it should be.
No, 100%, because that's just not fair to them. Like, it can play a part in their thinking of if they join the team or not, but they shouldn't be one of the first people to have access to the media to ask people questions. Like, that's a totally unfair situation. But from a basketball sense, I think everyone's kind of just speechless over all the accolades. You got two former defensive players of the year with Candace and A'ja. So we'll start off with CP3 joining the Aces from a defensive front. What does this do to this Aces team now?
I mean, you just have, such a veteran presence, someone who can facilitate, who's sees the game the way she sees it. I mean, Candace Parker impacts the game so many ways on both ends of the floor. I mean, I was telling someone recently, I was like, man, I can't wait to just sit down when all this free agency stuff is done and really like dissect, what does this look like? What does it look like with A'ja Wilson and Candace Parker out on the floor together? Throw in Kelsey Plum. I mean, what is this going to be like? But I think the beauty about Candace Parker's game is how versatile she is. How much she can facilitate from her position, how she sees the floor, how she makes everybody around her better. And, it's got to be a complete joy for someone like her to go into this scenario and get to play with, Chelsea Gray, one of her best friends, get to play with Kelsey Plum. I mean, you're just surrounded by superstars, and I have a feeling she's going to just kind of go in here, step into this situation and just say, hey, okay, how can I increase this team? How can I make everybody around me play to the best of their ability? Because that, in my opinion, is what Candace Parker is the best at. Probably more than anyone else in the league, is just making everyone around her better.
And we even, just for people listening, I texted you over the weekend and I'm like, hold on. Even if this team didn't add any pieces, we'd be going into the second year of Becky Hammon's offense. And we already saw what this first season brought us with A'ja shooting their 3-point shots and opening up the floor. When you add Candace and all the attention, like, this is going to be a very unstoppable situation, correct, with this Aces team offensively?
I mean, yeah, you certainly think so. I mean, it's like, it feels like a video game to some degree, but part of me playing devil's advocate, I'm like, man, is there a scenario where this falls apart, like where it's not as good of a fit as potentially, remember back in the days of A'ja Wilson and Liz Cambage, that kind of felt like it didn't mesh well at times. Nothing about them personally or anything, but just the style of play. I don't think that, like, to me as a basketball coach, a former coach, someone who's analyzed the game, I don't see that as glaring. I just think it's going to be really interesting to analyze like roles and specific roles and what that looks like, and how does Candace step into this system and integrate, the way that they need her to. But I mean, she's such a veteran of the game. She's one of the best basketball minds. Like, if anyone can do it, it's going to be her. So,
and before we get you out of here, two quick questions. Last one on the Aces. Of course, I mean, we just talked about it earlier, the depth issues where the starters just played through it, literally. Now they sign Alysha Clark, helping the team, kind of alleviating some stress with Jackie Young, where she can play the 3, the 2 through 4, to be honest, wherever they want to mix her in. For those of us not accustomed to her game, what is she bringing to this team signing with us?
I think you just have such a disciplined, solid, steady defender. It doesn't can score. I mean, she can score. Does she need to on this roster? I don't know. Maybe at times, whatever that might be. I'm the biggest Alysha Clark fan. I've always loved what she brings to the game. I can't wait to see her, back at 100% and healthy and with this new opportunity. But I think the thing I love about Clark so much is just the way she sees the game, how much of a leader and a veteran presence she is. But defensively, she's so sound. I mean, she's going to help this team tremendously in some of the ways, that they didn't want to defend at times. They were going to go score as many points as they could. Now you've got a stopper, another defensive weapon that, you can shift around, and that's huge. And the crazy thing is, I mean, I haven't seen the specific numbers about contracts or deals, but there's actually potential for them to add another piece depending on how big these certain contracts were. I mean, Candace Parker and Alicia Clark. I mean, there's a chance that someone else is going to be added to the table here.
Rachel, I just want you to know that there's someone watching this right now that just threw their phone in disgust. Like, this is disgusting. And to be honest, what made me the happiest is I looked at her career stats. She's shooting 38.5% from three in her career. And if anything, joining this team, she's probably going to get more open looks, one would assume. So to see that, and you just brought up all the defensive stuff, which to me is the basis, like that's first. But to be able to shoot it like that and coming off the bench and just giving some support to these ladies, the starters.
She's a champion too. I mean, she's a champion joining other champions. It's just greatness across the board. I mean, it's what a time to be alive, man.
and speaking of that, we can't get you out of here before asking you about Breanna Stewart. And the reports are it's down to 2, staying home in Seattle, going to New York to give us a super team on the East Coast. Right now, this very second, where are you leaning towards where she's going?
I have heard it changes every day, whether that's reliable or not. It changes in my mind about every 2 hours. I mean,
KD keeps sending tweets. KD's applying pressure.
one minute I'm certain, you're going to see Breanna Stewart and Vandersloot in Seattle. Then I question, okay, Vandersloot's going back to Chicago. Then I question, okay, Stewart's going to go to New York. They're both going to go to New York. I mean, at this point, I honestly have no idea, because at this point, I'm just ready for it to come out. I'm ready to know, man. I'm ready to know.
Would you be a proponent? Because I really feel like this would be dope if we do have the super teams representing the West Coast and the East Coast, or do you want just more parity across the board?
I think it would be cool to experience. I think it would be interesting to watch to this magnitude. If New York were to land both Breanna Stewart, Courtney Vandersloot, JJ, Sabrina, I mean, just to witness that and to see, like, how does this look? Personally, I would like to have the wealth shared out a little bit more. I mean, it would be, I personally would love to see Seattle be able to hold on and kind of keep it like 3 top teams. New York is right there. You've got Seattle, which is, I mean, if assuming they go there, to me, that's a pretty damn, it's close to a super team,
Yeah, with Jewel, of course.
Yeah. I mean, Courtney Vandersloot, Breanna Stewart, I mean, and then you got Vegas. So I think that to me is more interesting, because you've got 3 teams ideally that are right up there in terms of just talent wise. And then you've kind of got the next tier of like the Dallas Wings, and who knows what Phoenix is going to do, but we'll see how the dominoes fall. But then you start to see other teams that might be able to give them a run for their money. Connecticut, might still be able to make a push at some of those top teams. So, I mean, personally, it would be cool to experience these 2 massively crazy super teams, but I think in the long run, I love the parity.
Well, listen, fair enough. Be sure to follow her on Twitter at Rachel Gall, Gall. Her iPhone's right there. She's got to go back to it because free agency is happening. Rachel, thank you for making some time for us.
Of course. Have a good one.
Man, much love to Rachel Galligan. Be sure to follow her on Twitter at RachGall. That is RachGall. And also our other guest, Cameron Wolfe of NFL Network. Be sure to follow him at Cameron Wolfe. Wolf with an E at the end. And before we get out of here, if you are more of a visual person and you want to see the podcast, that's no problem. We got a place for it. It's called YouTube. Not sure if you've heard of it. Be sure to subscribe and check us out at The Sporting Trib. That is TRIB on YouTube. Subscribe. You can watch this episode, our previous episodes, and a whole bunch of other content coming out here on The Sporting Tribune, from all facets, from hockey to baseball, of course, trade deadline, of course, the Super Bowl, of course, collegiate, UCLA, USC, a whole bunch of stuff at the Sporting Trib. So go check that out at thesportingtribune.com. Of course, I said the YouTube at the Sporting Trib. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at AdrianRadio93, on Instagram and TikTok at Heavyweight Radio, and be sure to follow the Sporting Tribune on all social media platforms, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at Sporting Trib. Sporting Trib, not the Sporting Trib, Sporting Trib. We will be back next Monday for your post-game show of Super Bowl 57. I'll give out my prediction one more time. I think the Eagles win. I want to say handedly, but no NFL game is very rarely a blowout. And especially with the experience that the Chiefs have, I think they stick around. I think they finesse. Patrick Mahomes makes it work despite not being healthy, but the Eagles are too damn good. Run game's too solid. Defense is too nasty. And your Eagles are going to walk away with the Super Bowl championship, in my opinion. We'll discuss and we'll see what happens. But for Your Way Breakfast and Lunch, our new sponsors, and Zip Chair Gaming, our new partners, thank them, thank you. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.